Hey, good morning. Welcome back, everybody, to the Life on Deck podcast. This is Tim here with Chad and Greg. We're back Tuesday morning. We're going to discuss a little bit Sunday night and ESPN's Last Dance and some of the things that we thought stood out to us. But first of all, went back into YouTube, found this in the archives. This is a lead-in to Game 5 of that '98 NBA Finals, and just a little bit of nostalgia here. Let's check it out.
Michael Jordan. By now, if you say he's the greatest basketball player of all time, you scarcely get an argument. Much of what he has been about has been artistry and a far-reaching impact beyond the game. So while cold facts capture only a part of it, those facts alone are stunning. 10 scoring titles, 5 most valuable player awards, 5 times the MVP of the finals, now a single victory from a 6th NBA championship. And if it all ends tonight, he will leave with that rarest of athletic distinctions. He will leave without ever having relinquished his position as the greatest player in the game.
The GOAT. After watching that short clip, can you even dispute that he isn't the greatest of all time?
No. I mean, I watched a couple clips on Twitter the last couple days, and you have like Kevin Durant who flat out says he's the GOAT. I mean, if you really think about it from an undefeated perspective, only like Jordan in the finals, Floyd Mayweather, and I think Rocky Marciano are the only ones that really never lost anything at the highest level, which for the championship or for a championship belt in boxing. That's a pretty cool stat that they were talking about the last couple of days on ESPN and all that stuff.
Yeah, and isn't that really what separates Jordan and the legacy of those '90s Bulls? I mean, 6-0 in 6 finals. The guy takes basically 2 years off. I mean, some of the stuff on Twitter has just been really cool, really cool.
Yeah, it has been. It's been a neat platform to be able to hear other people's opinions that we probably in the 90s would have never gotten, because unless they went on, a broadcast or a radio cast, because podcasts weren't around back then, unless they went on something like that, we'd have never heard their opinion at all.
I mean, I just saw yesterday on Get Up on ESPN, it was like Jalen Rose comes on there. Jalen Rose played in the league for 12 years or something.
Yeah.
And he didn't. And they were trying to compare LeBron and MJ. And he was like, there's 5 other players that are better than LeBron. I mean, I don't know what we
were trading texts back and forth a little bit. We were talking about the fact that when we were growing up, we knew who – obviously Kareem wasn't that much older, but we knew who Chamberlain was, and we knew who Bill Russell was. And, does LeBron is LeBron better than Larry Bird, who if it doesn't injure his back, and if Lenny Bias doesn't die on a dorm room in University of Maryland, how many more titles could the Celtics have won? I mean, does the late 80s Lakers ever even happen if that's the case? Who knows?
I mean, honestly, probably not. I mean, in 1985-86, the Celtics, that was by far one of the best NBA teams ever assembled. And the scary part was when we discussed that, that's the exact team that Jordan dropped 49 and 63 on in the Garden the first 2 games of that series.
How phenomenal was that part of the show where they made sure to go back and show that? I mean, the world knows that as his coming out party, other than '82 hitting a game winner in the NCAA final. But wow, that was
I'll plead
tremendous.
ignorance on this. I knew about the 63 points because you see that on like every Jordan Come Fly With Me and all the little videos he did. I didn't know he had 49 in game one, and I didn't know that he was the game MVP in 2 losses on national television.
Yeah, no way. Well, I mean, what did you guys think of the way the series started? We knew obviously there was going to have to be some discussion for the younger crowd and in the demographics that, establishing a little bit about the Bulls and what they did and who Michael was. And obviously they got to talking about Scotty and different things. I don't know if you guys saw this morning. The ratings for Sunday night from the 9 to 10 slot and then that 10 to 11 slot were like the biggest documentary ratings of all time, especially for ESPN. The 9 to 10, 11 slot hit almost 10 American households, which is hit almost 10% of American households. If you think about it, 10%. Yeah, it hit almost 10% of American households, which in comparison speak is just ridiculous. I mean, you've got the Super Bowl that is 40 to 50% and different things. Like, I'd be surprised if it's maybe not one of the highest TV productions of the year, at least so far. It's got to be. It was like through the roof. I mean, guys our age and guys that love sports would obviously tuning in, but maybe somewhere there's like some grandmas tuning in somewhere. They're just like, they remember that. You never know.
They loved MJ too.
Yeah, you never know.
I mean, I know like all my players put it up on Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter that they were watching it, and they got in a couple discussions. I think they were a little enamored and in awe of how good he actually was. Like, they got to see clips and mindsets, and it was fun to see him go back and forth in the group chat a little bit too. I mean, they obviously still think LeBron's the best because that's their era, and I do respect that. But in the same token, I don't think we've even like got into really what this documentary is about. I mean, I think they teased us a little bit with some stuff, but I think it's going to get a little deeper as we go, over the next 8 episodes.
Do you guys – sorry, Greg.
I know this is a little, but what about Bobby Knight and the fact that he would coach that, was it 1982 team?
The 84 gold
84
Olympics, yes.
And the fact that he said that right then and there that he was the greatest player on the planet, and that the Trailblazer, he told that guy from the Trailblazers he should have taken him with the #1 pick, and the guy said he needed a center, and he said he can play center too. You should just
Sam Bowie. Sam Bowie. Well, I guess the biggest thing, obviously, I was surprised that they started with the operational snafu that the Chicago Bulls were by 1997, and they talked about the 96-97 season and Scotty getting hurt. Man, what a bad look for Jerry Krause. Is he even still alive? I'm sitting there, I'm watching it.
He passed away in 2017. I looked it up.
Yeah, I'm cringing for his family, of this great accomplishment in these days, and obviously, they paid him a little respect in regards to he's a guy that, put the team together and worked the numbers and got the contracts done. And, but, Greg, you tweeted something out from Seth Davis, who I love. I guess, does he still work for CBS? Yes. It's amazing how much you can accomplish when no one cares who gets the credit, not Jerry Krause. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it's going to hit you. It's going to hit you right here.
It's true though.
Yep.
I mean, he's the same guy that said organizations win championships. And I agree in context that the Chicago Bulls organization won a championship.
You have to put that team together, but players make plays.
That's it. I mean, all of us have coached in some fashion. If the players don't play well and we don't do our job as coaches and our staffs, it doesn't matter who you got on the roster, unless you have Michael Jordan, and that was proven. I mean, the guy single-handedly got them into the playoffs in '86 after he broke his ankle and only played 18 out of 82 games.
Yeah. In 86 there, what did you guys think about? You definitely saw some of the Michael was pretty carefree as far as tossing his 86 teammates under the bus a little bit about mindset and, how much that team needed him and different things. We know Jordan is the ultimate competitor that would, probably punch his own mother in the face to win a game of horse. Like, I mean, that's just always the way I've, especially after his Hall of Fame speech a couple years ago, where he just kind of stood up there and he was like, I am the greatest, get at me, We're talking about his leg injury, and, the clip is going around a lot from the owner of the Bulls, and they're talking about, Michael, if there was 10 pills, and if we gave you a bottle of pills, and nine out of 10 pills would cure you and one would kill you, would you take those pills? And what was Michael's response? I mean, ESPN let the F-bombs drop, but Michael's response was what? Do you guys remember?
I mean, it was basically like, how bad we got to win.
How bad is a headache? That's what it was about.
It is. And before they got in really to the 86 stuff, how about when the guy from behind the camera, like almost offset a little bit, asked Michael about the cocaine circus in 84 when he was a rookie?
Yes.
And he just busted out laughing. Like, I don't think he anticipated that question. And the look on his face and the way he laughed was just classic, because it's like
right there told the truth. He didn't have to say a thing.
Exactly. And it's almost kind of like funny, because it's like when you get around old high school friends or buddies and you bring up a situation that's like, oh my God, why are we going back to that? It's the same look. But
if I get any of my friends watching, they would laugh like that.
Well,
I mean, I liked how he worded it though. He's like, he walked in and saw lines, weed, women, and he's like, man, if this gets rated now, I'm guilty by association. Like, if my players in my program who watch this religiously as they posted, if you don't listen to him saying that, like we say it all the time, like, you're guilty by association. You want to go do that nonsense? If you get caught, I'm telling you right now, here's the law.
Yeah.
Don't mess with it.
Yep.
Here's the best ever saying it. So you don't have to listen to me in that context, but just hear that the guy that, you buy his shoes every January and December when they come out, that dude said it too. So obviously there's some value to that statement.
Well, and it's a lesson to the standard. It's a lesson to, our standard in our program, our standard in our team is this. And, Michael comes in as a rookie and he can tell right away, obviously coming from the tradition of UNC, I'm sure they had standards and were held accountable there a little bit. And he comes in a situation, he's right away, he can smell, he can tell that it's not a good scene. It's not a good situation. And were those 84 Bulls very good? No. Were the 83 Bulls very good that, ended up, they were able to scoop Michael up in the lottery, but there's a correlation there, direct correlation.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean,
Go ahead, Greg.
They had even talked about how, like, carefree he was at, North Carolina. Dean Smith still was a great coach and a great leader, and they had rules, but yet he still could live his life a little bit. And I thought that was interesting. And then for him to still walk into that hotel room, and know right from wrong is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, because that would have been before Len Bias, right? Because when was Lenny Bias? 86?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was the 86 draft.
The 86 draft. So we're talking 2 years ahead that, he went in and still – I mean, not that he didn't know right from wrong, but it's kind of interesting to look at the timeline. It's not like Len Bias passed away and Jordan walked in and it's like, oh, man, like, we just lost a really great one here. Like, I can't be around this stuff. He was already ahead of it mentally anyway.
Yeah, I can remember it's a shame that so much time has passed, and, we're all getting older. Talking about Lenny Bias a little bit. I was a first-year teacher many moons ago at the first school that I taught at, my first teaching assignment, my first classes, my first group of students that were my own. I can, you still picture every single one of those kids, remember them. and we did a lesson one day on Lenny Bias, and I tried to tie it to, I was teaching social studies, teaching government, tried to tie it to government policies and how government policies respond and react to things that happen. And, how like the thing with Lenny Bias, and for a big generation, it was a where were you win kind of moment, and how that changed the way the government and sped up the war on drugs. And just, it was one of those things that how, man, what a tragic story. And we're all Maryland guys, as we've established, but, one guy went one direction, one guy went the other. And I know lots of people say, that was Lenny Bias's first or second time of trying to use drugs or whatever. And, some guys would say, that's not the case, but just your choices have more of an impact for not only yourself, your family, but everything. And that's one of the things we're always trying to get our kids to understand. And, you're a part of something bigger than yourself, whether you realize it or not. And especially those guys that are talented. I mean, Chad, you've had a chance to coach talented kids. I have. Greg, you have too. Is like sometimes the talented ones, they're the toughest to get that message.
Yeah, they're almost invincible.
Yeah. Yeah.
In their whole life, they've been told they're really, really good, and it's hard. I mean, there's a couple athletes that have come through this town that have done stuff and been really good, and they had that mentality, and unfortunately, they haven't probably gotten to the level that they deserve to get to because of that mentality.
Well, we're all products of our environment, where we all speak highly to our upbringing and the sacrifices and the standards our parents held us to. Unfortunately, some kids just don't have that, or just don't have that as a model. Greg, you're in the back row and giving to the train honk. What's up?
Oh, it's Morgansville. It's sorry. It's right.
Okay.
The train's going through. I'm on the back. I'm on the deck.
You're on the deck, man. On the deck for sure.
How about when Roy Williams said that he's the only player that could ever turn it on and off, and he never flipping turned it on? How about that line?
Yeah, that's crazy. I love the story of, I know there's a lot they hit on social media, and it talked about how, we all know the story of Michael was cut from the team when he was that old, and he went home and he whined to his mom, and his mom basically told him, suck it up, get better. Doesn't matter, get better. Got to shout out my boy Brian Kite. I'm interested to get in to his new YouTube series. He just started a YouTube series every day, like a 20-day series where, he's hitting on all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Chad, you know who Brian Kite is? The whole
doesn't
matter,
man.
get
I
better.
follow him on Twitter. He does some awesome stuff. He's very high level and speaks on a lot of great topics that I'm able to share with my players on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But
that lesson in itself from his mom and getting cut and all, I mean, what's the difference between then and now? You two are coaches, what's the difference?
I don't know. You run into, like, I think Twitter, social media was kind of like, oh, this is an epidemic that all of our high school kids are soft, and every kid, I got a feeling that in Michael's time, I'm sure in our time, there were kids that way. I've been blessed. I've had the opportunity to coach a lot of kids that, had no problem trying to get better, had no problem with the coach being honest with them. And first of all, you got to have that relationship with that kid and that trust built. But there's always those kids that you think that, well, if I go tell Johnny that, he's no good, and, is he going to quit? Is he going to leave? Is he going to whatever? But it's kind of one of those things with kids, in my experience, there may be some more obstacles and challenges to overcome, but they're not as bad sometimes. Like, how many guys we grew up with were idiots? How many guys in our parents' generations were idiots? How many, so it's kind of one of those things. I think, what's the old line? Every generation blames the one before.
Yep.
old Mike and the Mechanics reference there. I don't know. I think just with social media and the way the world is today, more connected, it's more known about. But I've had the opportunity to coach some kids that I think would kind of not represent that example.
I have too. I think, I've been fortunate enough to sit on a couple podcasts as like a guest listener.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a guest, I put in some information because of the different levels that I've been fortunate enough to coach at. A lot of high school basketball coaches have asked me to come on and just give tidbits about what we look for when we would go in the gym to recruit, how we try to evaluate body language, that type of stuff to really help their players and their young men. And I talk about a lot with my guys at South, but the one thing that the kids today have that we didn't have is this self-righteous feeling. Like, yeah. I talk about this a lot with people. I can probably find, no lie, maybe 10 photos of me playing sports my entire life growing up. Like 10. Like, of me actually in an action shot.
Yeah.
Like,
and they're probably in an old high school yearbook somewhere is where most
exactly,
of mine would be.
Right? Like, you're dribbling the ball up the sideline. Or, I played soccer and baseball too. You're taking a ground ball, and it's and they're like not great ones. I mean, these kids today got YouTube videos. They got Instagram videos with, the latest NBA young boy or whatever his name is banging in the background. Mm-hmm. They have their friends taking video with iPhones up in the stands. We're fighting an entire generation that is literally putting themselves on a platform that we had to earn, if that makes sense. And Jordan hasn't talked about it in this, but I read this when he was talking about it. It was a business one. It was actually – he was starting to get into the cigar business as well as the tequila business. And they started talking about branding. It was him and Ahmad Rashad. And it was really interesting to hear his point was when we joined the league, we had to prove worth before Gatorade, Nike, McDonald's, all those guys would come to us and say, we're willing to put money into you because you could, in essence, make us money. LeBron James signed a $90 million Nike deal. And he hadn't walked across the stage at Akron, but he hired an agent. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, he could have been a total bust. And LeBron is a very good player. I do, Greg, go back to what you were saying earlier. I think he's a top 5 of all time. Or very well could be in the top 10. He's in the conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But to get $90 million at 18 years of age is ludicrous. I mean, these guys are walking out and having shoes handed to them. Michael and those guys earned it, in my opinion. And I think that's just generation. They just expect things to be given to them. And they expect to make a varsity roster spot because, I mean, I remember when I took the job at South, the saying was we tried to keep this was just across the board, but the saying was we tried to keep as many seniors on varsity as we can because they gave to the program.
Right.
And I respect that. And I didn't try to bump that my first year. Because there was kind of a trend set, and it's not like college. Like, obviously I can't go out and recruit like 14 more dudes to come in as long as I run some guys out. Right. Like, I have to live in the hallways with these dudes. So, I couldn't, just knock the thought, but that thought in itself is entitlement. Like, I went to all my summer workouts, so I should make the roster. No, you went to all summer workouts to get good enough to make the roster.
Well, we had every year we try to come up with kind of a baseline slogan for the year for the season. Like this year it's the chase, and I brand all of our social media stuff with that. And Urban Meyer wrote a book a number of years ago, actually with Brian Kite's dad, Tim. And I forget the title of it, but one of the things they talked about when he took over the program at Ohio State, and I'm not a huge Urban Meyer fan just for a lot of different reasons, but I could definitely align with this thinking was, he had to get his coaches, the operation, his players to believe that every single day they were either being chased or they were chasing somebody. And it's the old thing that, it doesn't matter where you're going, you're as long as you're running and you're full speed. And those are old cliches. But last year, our slogan was earn everything. yeah, Coach K and Duke has had their series out, and the whole thing of his thing the 1 year. And I know that is one that gets used a lot. But, you know, we were trying to recover from – it was a season the year before that had not met expectations, you know, for kind of everybody. Just, you know, we didn't feel – you know, we've all had those seasons where at the end of the year I don't want to say you're ready for it to be over, but it definitely leaves you that taste in your mouth where, like, it's over. I'm going to give myself a short window of time, and then, boom, we're right back to work. And we wanted our kids to realize they're in everything. You know, one of the first speeches I give to the team in August is we finally get everybody in the same room together, because you always got some stragglers, is, you know, nothing. So sorry about that. We have you got to earn everything. Doesn't matter whether you're a freshman, doesn't matter what you are. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Life on the podcast.
From the deck.
This 2019, really 2018 season for Tim, you know, and then Chad, he had a bounce back year this year, but you last year, won 5 or 6 games, and then this year, more than doubled your win total. So
yeah, we went 4 wins, 8 wins, 14 wins. You know, the goal honestly was 12. I know that sounds crazy, but if I could continually just going up by that 4th, but you know, you fight things, Tim, as you mentioned. Like, I think you just said you finished year 5, right? You're going into year 6.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Yeah, crazy. Yep, crazy.
You know,
goes fast.
It does. My first 3 years at South went by in a blink, and you're looking back and you're like, man, where'd the time go? But it takes time to get your kids and your program thoughts out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just – and everybody's like, well, it's easy to get you got to change the program. You get your thoughts out. It's not as much getting the thoughts out as it is living the daily life of the thought. Like, they have to understand what the expectations are every day. And I believe that, you know, the Bulls had expectations. Mm-hmm. And I think even the Bad Boys, which they're going to talk about this coming week, like, I remember watching the Bad Boys 30 for 30, and it's so true. Like, Rick Mahorn and Bill Lambier would sit guys down and say, like, this is how we do business. This is what your expectation level is. And if you don't want to do it, you have to battle us in practice, so good luck with that. You know, your dad and my dad probably have used the term the old woodshed in context before. You know, we can't really say that in today's marketplace. You know, hey, we'll take them out behind the woodshed. They'll figure it out a little bit. They usually get you on a hot seat talking to people you don't need to. But it's a true statement. You know, you got to handle it internally in the locker room. And a lot of that's not us. That's our guys.
Group accountability, team accountability. Yeah.
Well, you talk about that woodshed. What the boys club on Saturday mornings was going into the woodshed, you know, and your dad, our dad, both, you know.
Yeah, it's great. They're great memories. Great memories.
Absolutely.
Greg, one of the things that, as I watched the other night, and they're showing Michael, you know, they're basically, it's a reintroduction of Michael Jordan to a different audience. We all know Michael Jordan. It's just it was nostalgia for us, right? It's just cool to see some behind the scenes stuff, but they're really ESPN's reintroducing him to a different audience. What do you think about I thought about Nick Adenhart, you know, where you talk about competing at the highest level and doing, you know, kind of the mentality. What are some things that, you know, we all saw Michael a little bit. What are some things you saw in Nick growing up?
Well, he had a lot of those competitive. Nick was the biggest competitor. I first met Nick when I was 6, 7 years old. You know, he competed in minor league. You know, at 10 years old, you know, he was one of the most dominant players in our little league. And at that time was pretty, you know, there was good competition, I guess you'd say. Mm-hmm. But, you know, just the simple facts, he worked harder than everybody. You know, but the competitor that Nick was on, I think, on the same line as what, you know, Jordan was the biggest competitor of all time, but Nick knew what you had to do to get to that level. Mm-hmm. I think he separated himself, you know, in that side too.
For sure.
I remember, so you guys remember this, you know how, like, in Little League, they used to have, like, that 9-10 tournament, and it would travel around, like, One
Yes.
year it would be a Conica-Jig. 1 year it would
Federal.
be a
It was Federal
Yep.
my 10th
Yep.
year.
So I want to say it was either it was 10-year-old year or 9-year. I can't remember which one it was, but it was at Federal, which is where I would play
Yes.
Little League baseball.
He would have been 9.
9, right? So
Yep.
like the rumor was like when halfway comes to play, like they got this dude named Nick. So we talk about Mike Jordan and then going to Michael Jordan, as he put it in the show. Nick was always just Nick. Like
Yep.
in town, if you said, hey, Nick was pitching on Tuesday, like everybody knew, oh, Aiden Hart was throwing. And I remember watching him from the press box during that tournament. And I think he threw like either a one-hitter or a no-no. I can't remember what it was. But it was one of those like, this kid's got some substance. And then he went to Goretti in high school, and he threw like 3 no-nos as a freshman. And I just remember, one of the coaches there thought he should have chosen another sport because he wasn't ever going to make it in the one that he was really, really good at. And I know his stepfather had other plans, and obviously those plans got him to a level that we all thought he could get to. And unfortunately, they need a right-hander pitcher up in heaven too soon.
With Nick, it was and Greg, you guys grew up together, and I was around Nick when he was at the house and stuff. With Nick, for me, like being a little older, it was never a matter if, it was always a matter of when. Like, when I know he had the injury coming out of high school, and he, elected to take the money with the Angels and go that route. And, he was all, different leagues and doing different things. It was never about if, it was about when. And I remember the pride that everybody felt and the interest everybody had when he finally, got to do his thing. And we all know the rest of the story, but it made me think.
There was that moment for you. I mean, you could tell you where you watched the game that night when he pitched for the first time.
Yeah.
It was that for Hagerstown, like, where were you when Nick got the call up? Because I remember watching him pitch. I want to say he was at home and he really struggled. And then his next start, I think, was at Kansas City, if I'm not mistaken. And I think he had no decisions in all of them. And then the first game the next year, he won. I think his record was 1-0 in the Bigs, if I'm not mistaken, with like that.
I think so. I think you're right. I think you're right. Greg must have had to roll out. But yeah, and that was one of those connections I was making as I was watching. Do you guys want to talk?
Coming off the court. So you're talking. I'm listening the whole time. But I have always told people from day one, Nick was special at 8 years old. And, and I've seen a lot of kids around here come up, and I mean, everybody. I'm being cliche, but a lot of people think their kid, is going to be better than they actually are.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw Nick at that age. There's no Nick Aidenharts, There's been some really good players around here, but you knew Nick was special then.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Tim. You probably have coached the kid that'll be closest to getting a call on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday in a couple years around this week.
Oh, he's, his story is incredible. He's come a long way. He's, and I know they're doing a great job at Clemson. Like, and he knows this. He hasn't arrived yet. And I believe there are great things in store for him as long as he, and not as long or not as if, but he's just got to keep plugging away, and he's just got to keep being him, and the things that have made him successful through the tribulations he's been through, will serve him well. And, we'll see what happens. But I know they think the world of him down south in Clemson, South Carolina, and and we do too here in Williamsport, and I'm sure a lot of places else. But he just got to keep plugging away and working hard. When we were, I was not just trying to advise as much as I could through the process as he was going through it there a year and a half ago or so, and he had a lot of options. And one of the things that really impressed me and is that he wanted to be a part of something that felt like family and had integrity and, could help him develop and grow as a man. But he also wanted to play at the highest level. And, he's working through that. And it's, I do believe that if he'd gone to school A or school B, he'd had some situations where he, might have had to play as a freshman. There was some people that made some promises. I tried to tell him that, you got to watch the guys that make promises at that instance, because there's an awful lot of work that's got to happen between, it's kind of disrespectful of the process for somebody to say, hey, you're great, you're going to start for us as a freshman, or we know, exactly what your plan is, because there's a process for everybody. There's a process for us. There's a process for kids, process for student athletes. So he's in a great spot. I'm proud of him every single day. I can't wait one day to get that text or that Snapchat that says, hey, I'm going to see meaningful minutes, or I'm getting a start this week, or, and again, with him, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So Just excited for that moment.
Yeah. And honestly, you guys do a great job at Williamsport, and you've fostered a relationship, obviously, with him, but with all your players, in a atmosphere that allows kids to be themselves comfortably, yet expectation levels never waver, and they're able to go compete at the highest level. And he really, like you said, he hasn't scratched the surface. I knew of the kid. I've never met him. I did watch him play against South a couple years ago, and I want to say, he almost looked like a refrigerator Perry at times. I think he used him at fullback or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, that kid's pretty big and he moves pretty well.
One of my favorite stories, and all the guys that I coach with, and I know, Greg, you've heard this story before. One of my favorite stories is, I think we're in that game with South, and it was a great game. I think it's right before the half. There's 2 minutes to go or something like that, and we're facing a 4th and 4 deep in our own territory. And the question is, do we punt the ball off to South and give the ball back to their speed? And they were explosive. And, your boys like Timmy Towson and playing quarterback, he's never out of it. Do you want to give him the ball back? And so we're having some deliberation as a staff. Do we punt the ball? What do we do? I obviously have got to make the last call. So I call timeout, and I walk out the huddle with the kids. And I think one of the coaches right behind me, and before I even open my mouth, he's standing there with his hands at his waist in a powerful pose, and he looks at me. He goes, in other words, give me the ball. Give me the ball. We'll take care of it. It's not a big deal. My friends and family in the stands after the game are like, we saw you guys line up and go for it. Nobody could believe what you were doing. Everybody's saying, what are they doing? And I think when the play happened, I think I even turned my back. But it's one of those, I know you've experienced it in the basketball huddle as well, or in the locker room. There's nothing better as a coach when kids that you love and that you've worked with, and teams that you've built and mentored, or not even really built yourself, but just been a part of, when those kids look at you and say, we got this. And then they go out and do it. And that's for me, that's what it's all about. That's one of my favorite moments of sports ever in my life. And that doesn't even mean that I had to be leading it. You know what I mean? So that's one of my favorite Taekwon moments, is he's just standing there like this, and with that pose, and basically just give me the ball.
Yep.
I'll take care of it. So
that's what winners do. And that's why he puts on orange and purple and runs down the hill. And what's Brent Musburger call it, the most exciting entrance in college football, or something like that.
Most exciting 2 minutes or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, and I think he's gonna put you guys on the map. I mean, talking about putting on the map, I did some research just because I was curious. I want to say it was Hamburg, Arkansas, is where Scottie Pippen's from.
Yes, great story.
That's the Hamburg and Williamsport are kind of the same size. Think about that. A guy came from 2,800 people town, and how about the fact that he went to college at Central Arkansas, NAIA, which I don't know how your timeline went, but my timeline on Twitter was going crazy about how NAIA was a big deal, because I'll be honest with you, going to school at Goretti and then obviously at Shenandoah, it was you never really hear of NAIA, and I didn't hear of it until I got.
We're in the wrong part of the country, honestly, for NAIA. There's different regions of the country that it's huge.
That's a true statement. But I've sent a couple kids to like Pikeville down in Kentucky, and they've went down there and done a great job. Georgetown down in Kentucky as well, and I just kind of laughed when they said NAIA. I'm thinking, I know where this is going to go on my Twitter line, and it did. Mm-hmm. But he went as an equipment manager. Like, he was guaranteed a practice spot with more of a primary, like, you're going to be a practice manager.
Yeah. Like, you stand over there and hold that ball or do this or do that.
Yeah, you'll be in the passing drills, and you're going to hold the pad, and we're going to beat the heck out of you on the blocks just so you can get our centers ready. But in true – and I always call NAIA like an extension of JUCO. Like, you get more of the rougher kids. I mean, because to be a Division I NAIA kid, you only need to be a D2 qualifier in NCAA. So you're able to get a higher level athlete that maybe doesn't have the academic.
Yeah, a lot of those kids are Division I fallbacks for whatever reason, academics, legal, whatever.
And the old thing, like, I took advantage of the opportunity. Grades fell apart. Now, I do believe, and I had this conversation with Dan Preet, who used to coach at St. James. He now coaches at Bishop Walsh, and he's coaching Kevin Durant and some big-time guys, Justin Anderson and Justin Robinson. And he's got a couple dudes that are in the league collecting nice paychecks. And we talk about the God gifts. Like, Scottie Pippen grew from 6'1" to 6'5" to 6'7" in 24 months,
Yeah.
There's no weight room. There's no stretching machine that you can buy to get that. That's just God made him 6'7" and gave him the ability to go do what he did. So I think the misnomer is going to be, a lot of parents are going to be like, well, my kid goes to, Mount St. Mary's as an equipment manager. In 4 years, he can go to the league. Like, no, bro, he's gonna have to grow like 9 inches too. So there's some other stuff added there on that was not talked about on television.
Yeah, well, I got to think that the Scottie Pippen story isn't done in this series. Obviously, they made a big deal about his salary dispute with Krause and in their front office, and they went as far to even say that the relationship was just completely toxic, which I'm sure from a coach perspective and from the leaders on the team made it harder for the dynamic to work.
Well, as a team aspect, what about what did you all think of when, they're on the team bus and Scotty is screaming at him and cussing at him? That's crazy.
Yeah.
In front of everybody.
It's never, fortunately, never really, in a team-wise, never really had that happen to myself or really been around it. All I can ever really believe is it was just toxic. It was just a bad scene. And how much harder must have been for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Think about this. So Jordan's making in the last year $36 million for the season. Mm-hmm. Okay. Scotty's making 2.8. He's the 6th highest paid on the roster, 122nd in the NBA. Yeah, and dude's inevitably the second best player in the NBA, period. Like, it's not even close.
Oh, yeah.
And his time did come. And I think the way he went about it was probably childish. And I think he even probably has admitted that over time he didn't handle it the way he probably should have. He became selfish in a way. But he earned $110 million for his career in salary. $20 million more than Michael Jordan did in salary in his career. That's a crazy stat. Now, he didn't have Jordan Brand writing him a check for, $120 million a year either.
Yeah.
But, I mean, to give you an equivalent, I kind of looked it up just because I look up goofy things on my phone. To make $2.8 million in 1998, equivalent to today's money, is like $5.6 million.
Yeah.
To make $36 million in 1998 is $57.5 million a year.
Can you imagine? Well, he's worth every penny of it, though.
Oh, every cent. I mean, he earned every dollar.
Aria?
Now he is.
Yeah, now he is. Sorry, I will splice it back.
No, you're good. So So I think when we went offline, I was talking about the contract. Tim, did you hear what I said the contract was by chance?
No, cover back that. I'm sorry.
So, no, you're good. So, like Scottie Pippen made $2.8 million, which I think is worth like 5.6 today in value. Jordan made 36, and it was like 57.5 million in value, and that's just ludicrous numbers to me. And so I've been to the Hall of Fame. One of my buddies is he works up there, and I've been fortunate enough to travel with him to these different locations and meet certain people. And I've met Shaq and Gary Payton, Dennis Scott, and Travis Best and Ray Allen, Adam Silver, Jerry Reinsdorf actually got inducted the year that I went up. And they come around, they meet you. But one night we were out. And I was actually out at a party that Shaq was kind of around, and Gary Payton was there. And, I was hanging out drinking some adult soda pops with those dudes. And Gary Payton talked more trash at the bar than if he talked it on the court, and what I experienced at the bar was any correlation. Like, I could see where you get in your head, because he just talk all kinds of nonsense to you. And it was cool, because to me, those guys are on a level that we'll never get to. I mean, and that's okay. That's the world they live in. When Michael Jordan walked in, they were in awe of that dude. Like, I'm in awe of everybody I'm sitting in front of, getting pictures with, shaking hands with. When he walked in, I jokingly tell the story, it's almost like Jesus Christ himself walked straight in the door, because those guys were like, oh, there's Michael. Mike's here. I'm hanging out with Shaq. I think Shaq's the real deal. I mean, that's the biggest human being I've ever seen in my life. And he's like, there's Michael. So it's pretty cool to see how those guys even look at him. I mean, I couldn't get within probably 40 feet of him. He had 4 bodyguards that looked like the offensive linemen for the Green Bay Packers. I wasn't getting through those dudes. So, but yeah, it was pretty cool to see those guys in awe of greatness. To me, that said more than anything, to be honest with you.
Hey, I don't mean to kill the party. I got to go.
Real.
Real recognizes real. We're almost about an hour in anyway.
We're good.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys' time. If you guys want to keep rolling, I got to jump in here in the house and help out with some stuff. So
no worries.
Appreciate it, guys, and can't wait till next time.
Absolutely. Stay safe until we go on the deck the next time.
Yes, sir. Quarantine.
That's right.
COVID-19.
Yeah.
Thanks.